Hello and welcome back to the Welsh Premiership podcast. Today we're joined by Carmarthen Quins captain and someone that's been around in the Premiership for a long time now, Haydn Pugh. Haydn, how are you?
How's it going, lads? Good evening.
So, Haydn, you had 10 years playing for the Quins in the Premiership now. How much does the club mean to you?
Well, it means hell of a lot. You look at the start of my career in the Premiership as a whole. I started off in Lovely. I know I don't usually ever really mention that, but I started there when I was 17. I played there for a year, gained a lot of experience there, some really experienced players I played with there that helped me along the way. And then obviously I'd done 2 years at Neath, which was a great team to play for, especially the first year I was there. And then, I basically, in the second year of being there, back in that time, Neath were, we were playing at that time was the top team to play for. A lot of money back then, and a lot of experienced players that they signed, and especially in the second row department, which was fair enough. I went on loan for a month to Carmarthen Quins. I basically done my shoulder, went on loan for a month, and I needed some game time. It all really stemmed from there, really. I think the environment that I got into there, Steph Thomas, who's still a team manager, and Mad Max was coaching then. So, it was an eye-opener, but you had the likes of like Salino Martens, Ellis Lloyd, those boys who real Quins, like stalwarts as well. It basically fell in love with that side of it. So when Steph and like Brian Castle kind of spoke to me for signing for that season, it was quite an easy thing to do. And a lot of people kind of from Neath, a lot of mates of mine and still good friends of mine kind of said it wasn't the best thing to do. But I think looking back now, it was it's been the best thing ever. I've got 3 beautiful kids that have come to watch me week in, week out there. The boys over the years, I know we'll speak about in a bit, but it's such a real good club to be involved in. It's just the people around it as well that make it the way it is. And again, we'll talk about kind of the player development in a bit, but like some of the players that have come through the Scarlets that have played there, I've been fortunate enough to play with some class, if not world-class players that have come through that. So yeah, I owe a lot to the Quins, but I've loved being there for the last 10, 11 seasons. It's a weird one, isn't it, this season, because I don't know if it counts or not. So, but no. It means the world to me. I'm very fortunate for the position that I'm in with being captain and that, and I'm glad to say that I'll be finishing off my career there, so to say.
You finished last season in second place. How do you feel the campaign went for you personally and as a team?
So as a team, I think the first part of it was really, really positive. Hell of a season, actually, probably one of the best seasons that I've been involved in when you look at kind of the results and how we gelled as a team. It kind of first started off the Newport game where we played up in Rodney Parade. It was a bit of a weird one. I think it was a cup game that started us off, and then basically some boys really put their hands up, and I thought to myself from that night, really, I think me and Steph and Craggs and like Ems and those boys, we had a chat afterwards, and it was like, right, okay, this is the kind of like this. It's going to be a good season. It was a hell of a good season when you look at the league position and that. I think it was disappointing. I think the first game was against Ponty on TV, and we lost in that game, so it was a bit of a dampener at first, but we really came into our own. We had, I think there was a group of like 6 matches in between like that. Something's made me think, I haven't looked properly, but like between November, like December, where we had like a run of like 6 games on the trot. Some real performance in there. I think we Barbara on TV in that one. And the good thing about it is, which is positive, we finished second, but we were disappointed with losing to Merthyr away. Obviously disappointed with losing to like Llandovery at home and stuff. So yeah, when you look at the teams that we were disappointed in kind of losing to, we expect to win. Obviously the game against Cardiff was hell of a game on TV. One of the best that I've played in. And I know I had man of the match in that game, but when Wilson got sent off in the first kind of 4 minutes or whatever it was, like the way Josh Backup stepped up to that, jumped from 12 to 10. And it goes to show then about like the kind of character that we've got within the team. You know, you've got Nick Wren. I don't want to leave boys out, but you've got Nick Wren who can control that backline as well as backup. Experienced boys in the back three, the pack can pretty much look after itself. So my job's was quite easy on that front. But yeah, other good ones as well. Obviously, Pontypool on TV. That was a good one. And again, yeah, league second, semi-final of the cup. So yeah, the Pontypool game was a good one. I won't really say too much about what happened in the tunnel at half time, but I'll let that one be told when I'm old enough to have a couple of pints with their boys. But yeah, again, some decent lads up there, and just put it this way, it was a bit of something happened half time. But no, it needed to happen as well, because we came out and we showed that. I think a lot was questioned about kind of the West mentality, which is, I mean, that's fair enough for Leighton and those boys to be saying that about us, but I think we kind of proved what we were about. And again, like, it goes to show in that game, the boys putting the hits in and just the mentality to get through it. I know Torrin Mael, another class player to play for the Quins, he put his head the wrong size. He likes to fly in and go low, but he got knocked out. And it's just, the boys are putting their bodies on the line, and that's what it shows. I mean, you go back to the question of what it means to be part of the Quins and that. I think it's you put your body on the line for getting the job done, basically, but you enjoy it at the same time with those boys. But yeah, no, that's my bit. Oh, the other one was RGC away. It was like, I think that was the only game on in February, just before the kind of COVID lockdown. And it was the worst conditions I've ever played in my life. I think it was a draw in the end. But the boys, it was the worst. I think Billy McBride helped us out a bit, because every kick-off he was taking was pretty much going dead, and it was a real tough one. But the night out in Chester was made up for it anyway. So, but no, and then about myself then, yeah, you know what I mean? I've been in it long enough to kind of, I hope so anyway. I'm always kind of keen to learn, and I sit down with like Steph and the management every year when I've been captain, and not when I've been captain as well, just kind of trying to understand what my game is and what I need to be doing. And yeah, I've this year I really enjoyed it. Obviously, I feel like I've played my best rugby this year, controlling the game especially. But another game where I feel like, yes, obviously Cardiff game, you mean I played well in that one, and like a couple of televised games as well, like Aberfan, I had a decent game, driving line out and stuff. But like, the good thing for me was like Ebbw away, when I was on the bench, and you had like Lee Taylor, and I don't know, I think it might have been Helpsy or Jack Price, don't quote me on it, but they were starting, and just to watch those boys control it, you mean, those boys have got years ahead of it. And for me then to come on, I think it got a bit thing towards like the third quarter of the game, and to come on and to be able to control it rather than lose my head a little bit, which might have happened a couple of years before that. But that as much as people might think, oh, that's not the key get, you mean, I think that was a good one for when I sat down with kind of Ems and had a bit of a catch up with him, that was a good one for me, because I came on and controlled what we need to do, win the penalties, wine Sweetie up, and go from there. So yeah, no, that was personally my point of view. Best years being captain, you look at finishing second in the league, semi-final cup, just a bit gutted that we didn't get to crack on and carry on, like, you know what I mean? So no, it was good season.
And obviously Cardiff were the outstanding team in the league last year. We don't know when the season's going to restart now, probably not till September at the earliest. Is it a realistic expectation that you can displace Cardiff and you can definitely go for that league title next year?
I think, yeah, definitely. You know what I mean? I think every person that you're going to speak to on here is going to turn around and say the same thing, because otherwise they wouldn't be in the position they are in the Premiership. I mean, a lot is spoken about the Premiership by people who have no idea about how it works, but yet they seem to have an opinion on it. But all I can say from being involved in it from the beginning is that mentality is kind of within every team, and that's how we know it. You mean you don't take any game for granted. But yeah, that is the key thing, isn't it? Is pushing on, and that's why we're kind of, not disappointed. It is what's happened is what's happened, but we're in such a good position pushing forward. Yeah, like I said, the Merthyr game was disappointing. I mean, to lose away at Merthyr, you're disappointed with that, and it's like, I mean, Merthyr, great team. What the chief has done there, some good lads there. Again, I know Guesty kind of went on about the whole checkbook and all that, but I mean, I'll leave them to that. Like, but no, but you mean we were disappointed in it, and that was a tough game that was, and everyone on the bus on the way back was gutted, and it goes to show that's the mentality about it. So yeah, definitely push. We want to push for Cardiff. We've shown that we can beat them at home, quite comfortably. Really, it's about mindset and stuff as well, isn't it? And you mean we just need to win that league. You've got to be consistently good, and I think that we're in a good shape ahead, because the boys that have been dropping down. That's the beauty of the Quins. The boys who've always dropped down from Scarlets have always made the difference, and the biggest part have always bought into the culture of the Quins, not just turned up and played and gone. They've bought into the socials, they bought into being part of the team, they bought into all like the fancy dress and all that. So yeah, it's I think moving on into next year everyone's looking forward to it. But you mean, especially like you said about expectations for next year, we've got a new coaching group. You know what I mean, with Josh. Craggs takes up the reign of it. You know what I mean, with Geff and that, and obviously with Steph as team manager. But you know what I mean, you've got a young coaching group there who Josh is in the mix of it now, regional. So we're going to learn. I know he was on here before and he kind of said what his role is. He's going to be called on for everything. You know what I mean, we'd be stupid not to. And already, you know what I mean, go back a couple. Well, I can't remember when it was then, when we were kind of allowed to go back training once, and you weren't allowed to touch or anything like that. But already stuff that he's kind of implementing is showing on that. Craggs, you mean, his kind of mindset and stuff about the game and understanding of it is top notch. Like, so yeah, it's really I'm looking forward to next year already, and the youngsters have already had another year ahead. You mean, to my body's fresh, which is good. And the youngsters are a year, well, you would say kind of experienced, but not really, that's the only frustrating thing. But the great thing about it is those boys like Jack Price, Don Booth, obviously Jev, Sebastian, Helpsy, you mean, they've been playing kind of Scarlets rugby. So, you mean, you hope for them that they stay there. You mean, that's what you hope for. And I think they're good enough to be doing that week in, week out. But then if they are with us, then you know what I mean, it's only going to put us in a strong position, but we'll just keep on bringing through more academy players, keep on playing to the style that we play, and yeah, I mean, winning it and winning the cup is a big goal of ours, like, you know what I mean?
And obviously you've played in the Premiership for a long time, but what are some of your best memories from playing in the Premiership?
Yeah, best memories. I think going back early on, like kind of pre kind of Quinn times was with Neath. I had some really good memories with Neath, especially the first year with like Roland and Patrick Horgan and that, you mean, and you had some real characters within that Neath team. You mean, like, I could name a list of them, like Gareth King, Kipper, you mean, Arrow Thomas playing 10. And I had the beauty of kind of playing in the second row with like Neil Edwards and Iros. I think Nelly was about 50 when I signed for Neath, but and he'd have he's a real character, and he's a real character as well. Like, I don't quite know if he. I remember him having, before the cup final. It was in. That was one of the better memories. Was the cup final against. I think it was 2009. I think. Or 2009.
Yeah.
Anyway,
2009. Yeah.
Yeah, and we played, and I remember turning up for the bus. I was on the bench. Because I'd fractured. Funny enough, I'd fractured my eye socket a couple of months before against Quins in a cup game. And we only beat the Quins 22-21 in the park. So, Anyway, I turned up, and I think Neil Edwards and Ellie was having a fag in kind of the what's it called? In the knoll, like, and I remember looking, I'm thinking, bloody hell, he's about to play a game, you mean? But listen, that was my best memories. Well, you mean going backwards in kind of the Neath days were those times, the boys around you, like, you mean, you had Kevin Farrell, Kiwi, who they brought over, scrum half, absolute class, and you mix out with like kind of Tom James, Bulldog. Oh, there's so many names I could name. That team was very, very good. Like with Beachy, James Merriman, all those type of players, like different level of playing. And actually, like a Tavis Noyle as well. Tav was playing then for Neath. So yeah, winning the cup against Llanelli. Obviously, I'd kind of gone from the Scarlets region to Neath from like Llandovery and that. So there was a little bit of. It was always a bit, say, edgy when we played against kind of Llandovery or Llanelli. So yeah, that was a great memory. That was, and then just all memory really with Quins and that. You know what I mean? Just all the games like I've been involved in some really good games as well, and like even games that don't sound exciting. And I the one like Bessie said the other week about, I think we beat Pontypridd 6-3, and James Stevenson, cracking player back when we first started Quins. He I think he was off the halfway line on a pouring down night. Just games like that. Obviously, memories recently like Pontypool away. That was a tough one, like because we got embarrassed by them on TV the year or two before. They did, you mean, and there's only one way you go from that, isn't it? So yeah, they embarrassed us, so that was good. Got some really good memories. Like I love the memories about rugby, obviously playing and that. That's just the buzz of it, and that's what you miss. But like the memories of kind of socials and tours and stuff like that. You know what I mean? We went to kind of Magaluf 2 years on the trot, on like a Quins tour. How we was that, I don't know. But it's just seeing it, just memories like that, all the socials. That's the great thing about the Quins. Everybody kind of buys into it. Coaches, players. The worst thing, one of the worst memories I can say is, and I hate it, is doing fancy dress on kind of a home game. Because if you lose, then you know you've won. You've got to face the committee and kind of Brian and after the game. But then you've got to do that while you're dressed as kind of. I think we won against Cardiff. It was horrendous, and we all bought into it. And we sent Bilsey in first, like Stefan prop, and I think he was dressed as like Snow White or something like that. And it was just a word. But anyway, no. But listen, that comes with it all. But yeah, some amazing memories. Obviously, great memories was getting to the final. I know we lost to Drovers. That's obviously not a very good memory, and you mean losing that game. But yeah, just being involved with the club. I'm seeing the players coming through. You mean there's some just great memories there. Even the old school boys of like Gav Evs, Bougie, kind of Ellis Lloyd, Tomo, Andrew Thomas, those guys. I mean, you're talking about some decent blokes that I still speak to. Like go back 10 years, still speak to them now. Wilksy and all those boys. So yeah, obviously all my main memories come from the Quins. But yeah, so yeah, just obviously I think a memory that I want to finish up is obviously winning some silverware with the Quins. That's something that I push for as a goal, like, but that'd be a good one if we hit that, which I think we will. So yeah.
Yeah, obviously you've played in the Premiership for a long time. So who are the best players you've played with and against in the Premiership?
Okay. Playing with, I kind of mentioned there, like I'm starting off kind of because it's Premiership, talking about when I was with like Neath and that, but like obviously listen, Quins players, you mean some of the best players like Ellis Lloyd, you mean someone who would literally put his head where people just don't want to put their feet. But he's a good boy as well. You mean Ellis Lloyd, kind of Lee Williams, like he could tear up a defence like out of nothing. You know what I mean? And you kind of when he got the ball, you knew something was going to happen. You mean obviously Cubby, James Davis, absolute class. How the Scarlets didn't sign him 2 years before they did. Still, but anyway, he's gone on to great things. He's a great player, not only a great player, a great bloke as well. And he's got that Quins, he loves the Quins as well and stuff like that. So then, yeah, obviously, you mean, there's some class players like that. You mean Salilo Martens, Sione Tamani, the big Tongan guys, like they were some big, well, John Tongan was a big old lumper. So, yeah, there's too many to mention, really. Yeah, and then when you talk about, like, the kind of Neath days and, like, Llandovery days, years gone by, I mean, you're talking, like, Gareth Gravel, Neil Edwards. I've mentioned them already, like, Gareth King. Gareth King could, one of the best memories I had of kind of Kingy was you'd be standing, coming back, they'd kick a ball over the top and he'd be coming towards you. And Kingy's a Quins legend as well. And you'd hear the defence saying like, watch a step. And he would do the step and he would step anyone. And he was massive, he's about 6'3", about 17 stone. Like, and you combine him with Kev James on the wing. That was, you ain't stopping him, like, no way. I say 5 meters, that probably about 10 feet out. So yeah, I played with some real class players. But like, with playing against, obviously, names that spring to mind, the kind of, it comes with the territory, doesn't it, of like either being second row and kind of captain is like your opposition number. So like Sweetie, I played age grade with Sweetie, so I've known him for a long time. Cracking player, very, very good player. Good line-out caller. Just try and get into his head, and it works sometimes, and it sometimes doesn't work. Like so, doing that, having a one-up against it. I tell you what, as well, he was decent as well with Vale, like Damon Hood.
Yeah.
Tattoos all up his neck. Yeah, scary bloke. I remember him smashing me in Vale. I think, this is come first year of Quins, and I think he actually came off worse than me. Ribs exposed, but he actually came off worse because he actually smashed me. But Christa Camides, decent cracking player. Pontypridd. What's his name? More for a different reason, like that. The number 7, Bravon, Joe Tomlin Reeves, the longer he's I just like winding him up. And I'm sure he does with us as well. Chris Banfield, he's a good one to play against because he's a good laugh. He's an ex-Quins boy, so we have a laugh when we're kind of. He's well known for screaming at the top of his voice, like so. Whenever we know that, we just take the mick out of him. But yeah, some great players. Again, like it's hard to name all of them, like, but I think what's his name? Guesty, give me a fiver to say his name, right? But no, I'm only joking. But then again, we laugh and joke, but Guesty's been around it, and for what he does, he's decent at what he does. And that goes to show, like, with the clubs that he's been with as well. So I enjoy playing against those boys. Guesty's the same, and we're older now, so we can have a bit of a chat on the pitch with kind of like he's soft or you're soft or whatever, and I'm sure he tries to take my head off, and I'm sure I try to take his head off as well. So that's the beauty of the game, isn't it? You can do that, and then you can have a pint afterwards and just have a bit of a laugh and joke. So yeah, some I've been fortunate enough to play with and play against some cracking players, which I've probably left off a lot of people as well. So yeah.
And obviously the Premiership's got all the oldest clubs, the oldest grounds in. What are some of your favourite away days, and what are some of your least favourite grounds to go to?
Favourite away days, you couldn't beat Pontypridd. Well, yeah, kind of playing again. So obviously with the Quins, playing against Pontypridd, obviously in the House of Pain. It's not quite the House of Pain with the 4G pitch, but those boys can play as well. Like so, it's always a tough place to go. Like with Dav Lockyer and those boys, Dick Camides already mentioned. There's some they're decent old heads, and they're bringing the youngsters through as well. And round was an atmosphere that you couldn't think. Down in the Quins when we're playing against Livery, that's always a good game. Sorry, that's home, isn't it? Sorry about that. Away days. Going back to when I first signed from kind of Neath to the Quins, I played with Neath in the Knoll. The cowshed was absolutely booming. And that was like, you're talking about real atmosphere, like hostile atmosphere. It was good though, but we've had some great grounds away. Pontypridd, that place is, I think it's like that on the nicest of days, isn't it? So quite like RGC away. The fast track, those boys love to pass it about. Always an exciting game. We always play well. We always turn the heat on with that. And like I said, we've started something now with a social. Ed Sigri, one of the boys with us, he's started the. I think he wants to have a pint whenever after a training session. Never mind the game. So that's a Chester job now all the time. But no. Once I've looking forward to. Well, they're in kind of the division below now when they cross keys, but that was always it. We'd always end up having them on like a Tuesday night or something like that,
Yeah.
and it would always be hammering down. Not the best of pitches when it's wet, but again, we'd always seem to turn it on when we played against them. So yeah, sometimes we played in some real. But like I said, that RGC game away, that was something else. When that wind, I think ours was the only game that was on. So some hostile grounds there.
And you've mentioned a lot of young regional players that played with the Quins like the last few seasons, but how much do you think the Premiership helps develop these players?
Well, do you know what? I see quite a lot of like reporters and that. Obviously, they that's their job, and they can say what they want about the Premiership. They can say if it's, they've got they're entitled to their own opinion. But what I can say is, firstly, why is none of these reporters kind of asking the players themselves to ask them what it's like? Because they're the ones who are going to be able to answer it for you. But I can only put it in a way of like, kind of looking at things. You look at Rob Evans and Jeff Sebastian, right? Rob Evans, I remember playing Newport away, and I think he was playing with Ian Jones, and he was having it was a tough day up in Newport in Rodney Parade, and again that was a hostile crowd up there. But yeah, he had his head put up his arse, and so did Jonesy, and so did the whole pack, but and then the week, what that teaches you is you sometimes have to take that in life. You have to be hit with something to understand that, right, I know I can take that hit, I'll get back up and I'll go again type thing. So yeah, I think it's mad. How can you get that experience to kind of understand how to put something right when, say, you're only playing against, you mentioned about like an under-23s league or whatever, which is brilliant. Right? These boys need to play. That's the biggest thing is, they have to play. Sweeney, he said about it the other week, like, there's no point in these boys just lifting weights and doing all this if they're not playing. They've got to be match ready, and that's what you find with a lot of them. A lot of them will agree to that, especially the younger ones that I speak to now a lot. But I've got a list of names with Boydie, Will Boyd, and kind of Cubby. I'm not saying like the likes of we signed Rory Gallagher, and we had Tomo as well. Now, Tomo was a true legend of the Quins. You ask me who a legend of the Quins is, it's someone like Tomo, right? Who would literally just pull his sleeves up and run at a brick wall, But I think little things like the experience of kind of these boys seeing that happening, right, okay, he's putting it to, don't get me wrong, right? Cubby and Boydie are world class. Cubby's skill level is different, and he's gifted, but he would have took a bit off like Rory Gallagher's and those guys. Rory had been around the Prem for a long time. Look at when we signed Roger Wells. That's hell of a signing that is, to kind of bring through your likes of Kieran Hardy. I remember at the time Kieran Hardy was scrum half. I think Connor Lloyd and Gar George with Lefty and Connor's up in Leeds and that. But those boys would, and I know for a fact they would look at Wellesley and think, how is he? Just little things like the little cheating things. That's the big thing. The cheating kind of things where you're wasting energy and when you could do it a different way, or when you're managing a game, or when the clock is little things that people don't think about, and they just put someone in there. So what you're going to do? The last 2 minutes we're up on the scoreboard by 3 points. What do we do? Little things like that. As a scrum half, for instance, with Hardy, and obviously Kieran has done amazing. Kieran went off to Jersey, came back, and he's flying, and he deserves all of that. And but without kind of bedding in and playing some tough games, and getting scragged at the rucks, that's a good thing for those boys, is that you won't have it like that in the regional game, obviously. But those boys being there, yeah, right. Again, Ryan is a tank of a bloke, and he's done amazing. You could see that he would get to that level. Without the Premiership, I don't know. He wouldn't have had that experience of playing week in, week out, getting the hits, putting people on their backs and that, and taking them backwards. Do you know what I mean? So I've named a load of players there, but just not only those boys, but you look at Gar Thomas, Ivan Phillips, and that. those boys are doing really well with the Ospreys and that. Sean Bennett went and played for Cardiff Blues. He's out in Japan now. He was going to come back to us. And he went to Japan and that. And fair play to him, Northampton. But like those boys, I've been able to have leaned on some really experienced players. I like to think of it for myself. Like you ask kind of about the way I see my kind of career playing out and the way I take it on into next year. And that is, I help see Jack Price. Lee Taylor as well with the Quins as well. Like I want those Jack Price and helps you Scarlets boys. But I like to think that I've put my arm around them a number of times, and especially I believe it helps you a lot. Jack Price, I'm hoping to play a bit more with, and then Lee Taylor, I play with him week in, week out. He's a Quins boy, like, and those boys are playing week in, week out with Scarlets. So the best thing to do is maybe ask if they may turn around and say, "Nah, Pugh is only good for a social and having a fag on a Saturday night." But but all jokes aside, you'd like to think that you've shown them maybe some tricks to how, whether it works in regional is a different thing, but little Kit Kats, kind of like taking a break here and there, understanding when someone needs an arm put around them. So yeah, I think when you look at that, I think the answer to that question is it's massive. But these boys have got to play. They've got to play week in, week out for their skill levels and that. But then, you talk about what a lot of people don't say or don't see is that you talk about kind of like Josh's coaching us. We've had Emmy, we've had Rich Kelly over the past, Craigs and Geff and all those boys. I've worked with a lot of coaches within the Quins. But the person who's been there throughout all is kind of like Steph Thomas. So when you start looking at like player development and like the boys who have come down from regional, you've got to take your hat off to Steph and the way that he's managed it as well, because like he's signed the likes of Roger Wells, Rory Gallagher. I could name a load of boys. Craigs was signed from Aberafon, I believe, I think. Dinky, Dan Jones was coming through. I'm leaving names off here because I can't go through more, but you're telling me that Craigs could control the game. Like he had a hell of a boot on him. Dinky is a class player and he's got a long way ahead of him, but maybe sitting back and watching Craigs, look at how he controlled games. I think that would have been good for him. But yeah, sorry, back with like Steph and he's signed those boys to develop these other boys as well. So I think like a lot of credit. And listen, Steph, there's people in other clubs as well. Other Premiership clubs do the same. Ponty doing it with Sweeney, and other clubs as well, signing older heads. What Sweetie does up in Ebervale and bits like that. So yeah, it's testament to kind of what we've that culture that I keep on going back to in the Quins is that when the beauty of those boys who have made it and are doing amazing is they bought into what we were about. So it made it easier for them and it makes it easier for us as players. So yeah, it's been that player development is massive in my eyes. And what frustrates me is why don't they ask some of the players? If the players want to turn around and say, "Nah, they didn't do it," that's a fair point. Those are the boys who have played in it. They're the ones who are going to be able to tell you because they played week in, week out professional rugby and international honours. But I would probably say, I'd probably say all of them in each club. You're telling me that Wyn Jones, prop, Llandovery didn't learn anything off kind of Ems and Cantona, bloke down in London. Yeah, it's not happening. That's where those boys, it happens, and you can name it whatever you want to name it. Sanjay in Llanelli, learning. Well, he's just a class player anyway. But playing with backline like Llanelli had back in the day with a pack that Llanelli had. They were decent back then, so he would have learned a lot for his skill set. So yeah, you could go on about it all day, but yeah, it's massive. I think it's a huge part of their thing, and those boys, it's just testament to the regional boys and the academy boys with us doing that. So yeah.
There's been talk in the press today about a new under-23s tournament for the regional under-23s playing against English Premiership under-23s teams and Irish provinces. How do you think that will compare to playing against teams in the Premiership for those youngsters?
Well, I think it goes kind of back to what I've said already. I think it's going to be fast. It's going to be physical. Those boys, that's what they do day in, day out. That's their job, isn't it? You mean? So yeah, it's going to be fast. It's going to be brutal. It's going to be intense. It's going to be good for them because, like I said, they need to play. However, I don't know if Jev Jev and Sebastian kind of scrimmaging against, or whoever, Jev scrimmaging against Northampton, 21-year-old prop, where he's kind of fresh behind the ears. Jev has the better of him. What does Jev learn from that? I don't know. Again, these boys will be able to answer that. Jack Price will help you kind of call the line out when, I don't want to give too many things away, because I don't know how many referees are watching this, but with Nelly, I was in such a, at the time, I probably took it for granted, but being around like Neil Edwards and people like that calling line outs, I was able to kind of understand how to cheat. Krabs and Ian Jones. Jones used to be the worst. Ian Jones, especially defending line-outs, hooking a foot in there, kind of giving a nudge to a lifter, grabbing the lifter's hand and probably giving too much away. So if Derry and those boys are watching, I definitely haven't done that over the past. But you won't learn that in 23s. I'm not saying you'll get away with it in regional, so I'm not trying to contradict myself. But I think what they won't get compared to the Premiership is kind of, I think the Premiership would be far more physical than the 23s league, even though they are professional kind of academy players. It's different. I think it's a different type of hit. These boys need to go through it. Especially like well, to be fair, the boys have played well with the Scarlets and recently, like Jack Price and those boys. But like, I think they need to get hit by blokes week in, week out. Only well, as much as they can, but it gets them ready then, rather than someone the same age as you. Don't get me wrong, they could be freakishly strong and all that, but I just think that the Premiership needs to be there as that stepping stone. I think it works. If you think maybe cut it down to 8 teams or whatever like that, fair enough. But I think that what's it called? I think that 23s league will be good for it as pace. But I think when it comes to, like I've mentioned already, like game management and bits like that, how are you gonna, how intense is that? You've got a 10 coming through the academy who's got 5 minutes left on the clock, and he's up in Pontypridd away and he's got a kick for the corner, he kicks the post, is he going to get that same intensity as playing, I don't know, Ospreys on the top pitch in Pakistan that's being filmed and they'll go and watch it after lunch? I don't know. I don't think so. I think if you put someone in the environment where they're going to thrive in it, they sink or swim as well. Everyone's going to kind of not fail, but you know what I mean? But you've got to put yourself in that position to, kick it into the corner. It's my job to call a line out. I think Pricey and those boys would take more out of calling a line out in a tough, hostile condition than on a training pitch in Worcester. Do you know what I mean? So anyway, so yeah, I think it's good for them to be playing, but I do think that the Premiership is the right place for them to be. That's just my opinion.
And as someone that's played in the Premiership for a while now, how good would you say the standard is, and where does that compare to 10 years ago, say?
I think it's changed massively. The standard has gone unbelievably better. It's just the way the game has changed. And not only the way the game has changed, but the way the coaching has happened. I said already that when I started with Max, but you needed coaches like that. I started in Llandudno with Iestyn Harris, right? Iestyn Thomas, sorry, and he used to carry around a book with him, like of a quite old school type thing. But you need that. You need that to kind of understand that you need to get your head in places where people don't want to put their feet. But I worked with Max, and it was very forward, hit, kick the corner. And we drive and we score type thing, or that type of mentality. Whereas now, the beauty of it is we're having the last kind of 2-3 coaches that we've had. You look at Rich Kelly, what Rich Kelly done for the Quins, Emma's done for the Quins, and now Craigs takes over the reins with kind of Geff and Josh. Josh is still a regional player. Do you mean? Though the beauty of that is Rich Kelly would have seen how the pro game was adapting. Emma was in it, in the mix, knows how it's adapting, and so does Josh, Craigs, etc. So yeah, the game has changed massive. I'd say the speed of the game is the biggest thing of it. I wouldn't say the physicality too much. I think it might have been a bit more physical back in the day, if I'm being honest. I remember turning up to Newport with Llandovery, my first ever Premiership game. I played against a bloke called Matthew Vita and Mark Goodman. And I think Mark Goodman was that old that my old man played against him. But like you're talking, and I turned up there kind of, I'd say 16 stone. I was probably about 15 stone with like bleach blonde hair. Llandovery had never seen anything like it, and I got my head completely put up me, and I'd be honest enough to say that. But there's things like that you learn from, innit? But yeah, the physicality in that game was and those years, I mean, going into the Neath days as well, that was big. And the first couple of years of Quins was brutal. But then I think when kind of like Steve Williams and Louis Tonkin came in, it started to kind of, it was more about the speed of the ruck. It was more about the contact area. And you mean playing a bit more of an expansive game. And then obviously when kind of drip fed them, when Rich came in and Ems and now obviously Josh and Craigs and Geff, you mean that we're following suit now of how the game is meant to be played. I personally though, I prefer kind of watching the Aviva, you mean the English leagues, because I think if you look at like from the weekend with Bristol against Exeter, that those games are different level, like so. But yeah, we try and play the Quins now. It's an expansive game. You mean we want the forwards kind of handling like backs, and we want to be kind of giving them the ball for them to play with. So I think the game has changed massively in all directions, from forwards to backs. But also kind of game management and the speed is definitely, so yeah, it's changed a hell of a lot. But no, I think we've adapted well as a team and as a club, like, so yeah.
And you played for Wales in the 20s back in 2008. And what was it like representing your country and also playing with the likes like Warburton, Tips, Bigger, Halfpenny, and there's a lot of other big names in there as well?
Yeah, you know me. I'm glad you said that, because if I start saying names like that, people are just going to take the piss out of me. So I'll leave you say that one. No, listen, it was massive. It was. Do you know what I mean? It actually, because things that happened so long ago, you tend to kind of forget about what you've done and what you've achieved and all that. And you mean they put a program on, I think it was S4C a couple of months back, about kind of the whole thing around that, obviously the French game mainly, but like just kind of behind the scenes to all that, like we'd gone into that kind of the squad that was put together was a world class squad, as you've mentioned, like some names there, like, but you mean the coaching group within that was like one of like the best coaching groups I've been part of as well. Like it was real decent. It was good for me at the time as well. Like you mean you had Patrick Horgan, obviously I worked with Pat in Neath, straight as anyone, like mega straight. But you kind of knew where you stood with him. He told you what you wanted and you had to deliver on it. Wayne Jones, like he was a forwards coach was at the time, like, and you did not want to let him down, like put it that way. A guy from Gwent, real tough bloke, and you didn't. And the same with defence as well. Like we had Rob Appleyard and that, and you mean the way that he kind of got the defensive. I think it was what was it? Hammer was kind of how blitz it was. You mean we were out in France in the training camp, like, and it was the most intense thing with kind of apps and the players around us, like, and it was brutal but like amazing, because yeah, it was just the coaching kind of setup kind of put us in the way forward of that. Obviously world class players helped, yeah, but like I'm really good. I'm really really good mates with and I'm still really close. See him quite a bit, obviously not lately, but Rhys Lawrence was a hooker. He's my eldest daughter's godfather. We stayed really close through all that. Shared a room with Josh Turnbull. I won't go into that with what happened in that room. But but yeah, some real class play. When you think about it, some real class players. But like I like the thing behind it, like the Six Nations before all that. Like obviously he's well known, but like Nick Cudd, Cuddy was he was like obviously Warby and Tips and that were class. I mean obviously British Lions class, but like Nick Cudd was kind of different gravy back then. He was an animal. Like I think he dislocated his shoulder out in Ireland in the Six Nations. You mean you likes of people like Dan Franks, again, people that not many people would, but on the kind of rugby age grade circuit that we were about, again, like I think that's why Warby played 8, because Dan Franks was that good at 7. Like, so I seen Warby kind of, say recently, a couple of years back up in the Celtic Manor and stuff like that. We talk about old things. I like to see Josh, kept in touch with Josh. I lived with Josh for a while. Some world class lads are, yeah. So great memories, like, but yeah, it was just, I think it was about the kind of, again, you talk about culture is a big thing, like, but I think the culture that we got behind, like from the coaching setup and that, and like I said, that was one of the best kind of setups I've been involved in, is that you didn't want to let anyone down, and obviously you're playing for your country, so yeah, there was some big games in that 20s kind of Six Nations and World Cup, so yeah, it was great to be part of
that. Wales made the semi-finals that year, where they were knocked out by New Zealand, unfortunately. Some of those New Zealand players have now gone on to play for the All Blacks. So what was it like coming up against them?
Well, yeah, I had, so go back a year in the 19s World Cup, I was kind of obviously lucky enough to go on that as well. I didn't play in the first game against New Zealand in the kind of round games, but then I had my opportunity, I think, against Samoa, Argentina, played against them too, played well, and then I managed to play again against New Zealand in the semi-finals in the 19s. So I'd had the experience of kind of like facing the haka. That was an amazing ground, that was, in Ravenhill. But by the way, I think my age grade, when we had 19s and 20s, I mean, we had Belfast and Wales, like, and years before that, Dubai and Australia. So, but no, that was a great trip. That was the Irish, the Belfast one. That was great. But yeah, Ravenhill, that was class atmosphere. That was, and yeah. So the biggest thing is that's what they say is about the haka, is when you're facing it and all stuff like that. But you can't really put yourself in that position until you face it. And yeah, I'd be man enough to say, like, it's an intense kind of minute or two that they've got you there, like, but on both sides, like, it's intense. It gets you well up for the game. You don't need any like PAS products to get you up for that one, like, so but yeah, so yeah, going into the semi-final, yeah, we just come off the back of beating France, which I'm sure you're probably going to want to talk about in a minute. But yeah, listen, yeah, the names are kind of endless out of that All Blacks team, similar to the Welsh team. Like, I think I'm the only one who hasn't made it. Like, I don't know what happened, but but no, you got like Sam Whitelock, Zach Guilford, Sean Maitland. He plays for Scotland now. Even the boys, like, I remember I think it was Ben Afiaki. I think John. What's his name? John Afiaki was played for the Scarlets and that. So I think they were related. The number 8, I forgot his name now. He was a unit. I got some old photos of me. I think I made a tackle on him. I tell the kids that I made the tackle on him. I'm not quite sure, to be honest. But yeah, that was tough. That was in Rodney Parade. That was they smashed us, like, they were just I don't know, they were just miles ahead. And yeah, it was great. Again, talk about memories, like, of I know the Premiership and that, but those memories just are amazing. So yeah, that was a tough old day in Rodney. I remember it pouring down, and yeah, you like, so like you mentioned them already, but like, John Fox was probably bigger then than he is now, and like, even when I think the centres for them was I don't know if I think it was like Robbie or Ryan Crotty or Fruin as well. There's some decent, like, they were obviously, look what they've gone on to do, like, so yeah, that was tough. That was a tough game, but yeah, the haka and everything around it was things that I'll be able to speak to my kids about in years to come. Yeah, so good memories.
And you mentioned that France game then, which has become rather famous in Welsh rugby. What was it like playing in that game for a start? Obviously a massive win.
Well, yeah, go on, sorry.
And I was just going to say, from your eyes, what on earth happened after?
So kind of the painting the picture up to it. So I've kind of said it already. We've got a Wales World Cup, and so a lot of the boys, some of the boys had only travelled 2 minutes. Like Rhys Lawrence, I've said already, he lived up in the Sketty or Olcfer. Like, he's probably walked down to we were staying in a Marriott, we were down in like SA1. And I remember it was us and France sharing the Marriott. don't think there was another team there. I don't think. Anyway, so like we played. Bear in mind, we played France in Rodney Parade in the Six Nations and beat them. And like my dad loves telling the story of that game. Like, and you talk about the All Blacks being big. Those boys were units. My street was second row, just as big then. You mean Bastero was an absolute animal. Another one, centre, Jan David. He was class. You had Morgan Parra, blah 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 blah. But anyway, they were big. They were men. Like they were blokes. Like, so I remember being in the Marriott and kind of. You mean you'd walk past them, going for breakfast, blah blah blah. They're quite. The French are quite hard anyway. Like, so, yeah, we played all our games. We played Italy and Japan, and it obviously set up that game against France and Liberty. So yeah, again, like we talk about the coaching setup with kind of Patrick Horgan and Wayne and like Rob Apps and that. And that was, you ever needed people to kind of get you up for something, those are the guys to get you up for it. Like. So yeah, it set the tone on that. I remember watching it back, and I just remember from on that S4C thing, and that we I can't remember getting yellow carded. That was the big thing. I remember I tell you what I can remember. I can remember warming up in the tunnel, and I think like I think we did have music on in the changing room, and it was just like it was hostile before we kind of got out there, and just everything seemed to be kind of nitty gritty. Like Webby, I'll get on to kind of how the fight started, but Webby was a pain, like all the way through age grades, like in a good way. Like he'd wind you up, like, but he could back himself by doing it, as he's proven and gone on to do. Like, but yeah. So we basically, I get yellow carded, and I think we're down by 2 clear tries, and I think like Jonathan Davis, the commentator, is saying like about how we're going to get back into it. I think we get like a line out penalty try, blah blah blah. And anyway, yeah, and then obviously the rest is history. Then Foxy puts in hell of a pass off his left hand, half penny in the corner, and then I remember just celebrating in that corner with those guys. But then obviously what happened on the other side of the pitch was I don't quite know the ins and outs of it, but I think it was to do with, just put it this way, like a misunderstanding of a handshake or something. You'd have to ask Webby about it. I think he's unless you kind of know already. But anyway, yeah, and then it just all boiled from there. So obviously everybody kind of flew into it. Everyone, listen, they were hurting, weren't they? We just come back from 2 clear tries. The crowd in the Liberty was unbelievable. Like that's the one thing I'm trying to be able to capture that. Like you can't remember that properly because you're in the buzz of it. But if you sat back and looked at it, it would have been a different level. Like so. But yeah, yeah, just that fight, and everybody flew in there. I got some good pictures of me getting pulled back and Rhys Lawrence taking on the world, and Jev and Groves, Jev, good player, like real decent lad, and even though me and Guest used to probably scrap with him and Scott Andrews every time we played against the Blues in 8th grade, but anyway, that's another story. But yeah, they were getting it. I was on the other side of the pitch, so there was a lot thrown before we even got there, and yeah, some tasty ones actually. And I think the coaches, the players, the people coming on, it was crazy. And I remember that famous thing, like, with Warby doing his interview, like, and he's just shocked because how we won that game, I don't know. And then it kind of cuts out, and he doesn't know what to do then, like, do you know what I mean? So yeah, some amazing memories, and even that, like, still people talk about it. So now, like, it's things that'll last for a long time, like, so yeah, so always good. That was great memories, that is.
Was there, after you got back to the hotel then, was there any...
Oh yeah,
there was a sort of standoff?
I think it's funny you should say that, right? Because that World Cup, I could talk about it for ages, like, is that obviously the nearest thing to the Marriott was Wine Street. So back then, Wine Street was the place to be, like, you know what I mean? So I think I lived on the same, me and Miss Lawrence kind of lived on the same 30 quid for the whole 4 weeks. We'd go into Asper's Casino, win on like red on roulette, and then come out of there, buy a Nando's, and I'd probably ask my mum to transfer me some money then, or whatever, like, thing. But no, but that's how it was. So you'd always be constantly walking past French boys, blah, blah, blah. That's just the way it was. Like, so after the game, I remember straight after the game, we had to go back to the hotel to get our stuff together. And I think Jimmy Norris I don't think Jimmy played in that game for some reason, and he's such a good lad, real nice lad. And then I think it was Bastero and someone else was in the lift with him. I think it is anyway. And, like, Jimmy is not that type of person, and he, I think they'd said something in French to him about, like, I don't know, like, you wait or whatever, something like that. So yeah, it was quite intense. And yeah, so we basically got told by Pat and Apps and all that we had to go home. I went back. that year, I had my daughter Lily really young. So she was only 1. So I remember going back to the flat that I was in and being with her for a couple of days. And we went back then, and yeah, we were in Nando's in Wine Street, and kind of they would be walking past, staring in, and yeah, we'd walk past each other. But do you know what the best thing is? Like, I remember we lost to South Africa in the kind of like the third and fourth playoff, yeah. And yeah, we didn't do that well in that game, and we went out. But then obviously we went out afterwards. It'd been a tough month in that World Cup. We'd had a tough couple of weeks in France, in kind of the build up to it, working hard and that. And I remember being out in Swansea afterwards, and we were all mixing together. It wasn't, nothing was bad then. I mean, I've still got photos of like kind of me and Bastro and that I can't remember the name on Kingsway of the club that we were in. But it was nothing happened after that, I can promise you that. I think we actually were buying each other drinks and that, so it was good. It goes to show, listen, that's what rugby's all about, isn't it? I mean, you can lever each other literally on a pitch, and then you get off and it's kind of like, shouldn't have done that, sorry pal. But then you get on with it, then you shake hands, like, so yeah, they that's funny old memory, that is.
So moving on now, obviously you haven't played a game in a long time. How has your mental health been affected not having a game in so long? And yeah, how's the break just impacted your mental health?
Yeah, do you know what? I think it's a key kind of topic to talk about. I think people deal with things in their own way. Some people are quiet, some people have a laugh and a joke and pretend that there's nothing happening, or some people just openly say it. You know what I mean? I've been, for me personally, it's been quite refreshing in a way, because like I've got, I'm like we said already, I've been in the Prem for a long time. I got 3 kids. I've spent a lot of time with them that I wouldn't have if we were playing rugby. But it's important that, we always say it's good to talk and stuff like that. I've got 3 children. I've got Lily, George and Annie, and George with me. George is autistic. So like, talking about mental health and that, I struggled. I say struggled, I did. If I'm being honest and open about it, I kind of struggled talking about it at one point. But like, we talk about that rugby kind of community and people around you, even people that say they don't, play for whoever, but you end up speaking to them and they're actually really good people. I know that I can pick up the phone to kind of Guesty who plays down in Drovers, or I could pick the phone up and speak to one of the other boys who plays down in Swansea or Banff in Aberdeen, anyone or other teammates within my team. I feel comfortable enough to kind of speak to them about things that are going on with me as well, because I'd be honest with you, I struggled about it with like the whole autism thing and stuff like that. But it's good to talk. It genuinely, it really, really is. And like things like that with awareness, and what's full about the game is that, Rhys Jones, second row for Neath, Llandovery. I've had some good battles with him in the past, right? And he's got his own business, Cattle Strength. He's doing some great things, again, because gym side of things and working out is key for kind of mental health. And like, what's beautiful about that is it goes to show what your teammates are about. I did something for autism, an event, and pretty much all the boys in Quins donated or turned around to me and kind of said, I'm not just Quins, sorry, everybody. And then said to me then, oh, funny you should say that, my nephew has got it, or my niece, or my or my whatever. So it gets people talking. If you can talk about something like this on here, who knows? I'm not using it as a kind of platform for someone to reach out. I'm not doing that. I'm just saying that someone may be going through it themselves and they can turn around and say, do you know what, Pugh? I am going through it as well. I haven't had no one to talk to, blah, 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 blah. But anyway, I'm talking about myself now. So yeah, mental health's important. Like I was saying then about Rhys Jones, especially when he was with Neath, he was a nightmare because he kind of was with the Pat Hogan mentality of if it doesn't go well, you start throwing punches and that. And I don't mind that, but yeah, he's a good lad, a real good lad. Anyway, he played for. I think he's retired with Llandudno now. Yeah, he's got one going as well. Like we're growing with Harry, he's got a charity. His son Harry has got Down syndrome. Now, I don't even have to ask. I've spoken to the boys, like I've spoken to Guesty and people like that. It's like, everybody, you've got a support network there, no matter what you're going through. I can't speak for Reece because I know him as a mate, and I speak to him on social media. I see what he's up to on his cattle strength, and he's doing great stuff on that. But like you mean, if he's like me, I found it really good that I could speak to people and just, even if someone said, "Oh, I was George Gale," or whatever, I found it was nice, like because I felt, instead of me trying to not hide it, that's the wrong thing to say, but you mean mental health is key in that. But like you said already, like we've got a chaplain in the Quins, Julian, and he's done some great work. Like he kind of puts a quick WhatsApp in every so often and says like, if any of you boys want to have a chat, feel free to speak to us. I mean, we have a leadership group in the Quins that if we feel like someone needs an arm around them, we will. But I think we're a tight group. That goes back to why I love being in the Quins and why I love being part of it. Yeah, I love winning. I love all of that side of it. I love being captain. I mean, that's obviously. But then I love it because like it's a tight-knit group and everybody can talk to each other. Yes, we'll have banter. But I think when it gets serious and everyone knows that they've got someone to kind of lean on if they want to. So mental health is key, and especially with the times we're in at the minute, because it's difficult, like you mean, especially with the lockdowns and that. But let's just hope for bigger and better things when this all kind of goes away. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, obviously you mentioned the sort of the support networks that you've got, like the chaplain and obviously your teammates as well. But do you think there's more that can be done in terms of supporting people with their mental health in rugby?
Well, if you're talking on it like from a Premiership side of things, then I think a lot of clubs, like I see a lot of stuff going on, like with Swanky and Aberafon. I think I'm only saying little things. I'm sure every club does it, right? But like there's a lot about. I think what's good about it is you get the community, try and get the community involved as much as possible with all the age groups and everybody to be part of the club. And I think that then blends into kind of everybody feeling comfortable with talking to each other. And like I've said already, like the chaplain's been brilliant for us. Simple things like he might not even say anything for 6 months. It's not fair play to him. He turns up to training when it's hammering down, and you know that he could just say, "How's it going?" You're like, yeah, all's good. And he's gone then, and it's like he's just got soaked for an hour and a half just to say all right. But that just shows kind of the kind of testament to the way he is as a person. Like, but yeah, we're really fortunate for that, and we're quite honest as a group as well. And it's an important thing about us as a group. It's like you will always have characters who are, it's as if nothing's wrong. Which if there's nothing wrong, there's nothing wrong. But they all know that they've got someone to talk to. So, and that's within every club as well. Like I mentioned with Reece and his son and that, I know that Guesty and those boys have supported him. And it just goes to show how great the game is, and with the Premiership as well. Like it's a close knit group of people and teams. And I'm sure when you do the podcast with every other person within each team, they're going to say the same thing. Like, and that's what's great about it. So.
And to finish off, then we've got a teammates quiz for you. So obviously, out of all the teammates you've played with, who's the worst dressed you've seen?
Worst dressed? What, recently or kind of?
Through the whole of your career.
Through my career. I'm sure someone would probably say it's me, but no. Worst dressed. I don't know if it's worst dressed, but like I know that Sigri, like I know we talk about him, like we went out to Chester on he set a bit of a thing now with dress sense. Like he likes his clothes and that, and he wore his camel coat out in Chester, and he couldn't stop going on about it all night. Like so, yeah, he likes his clothes and that.
And who's the best drinker you've seen?
Best drinker. I tell you who's a bit of a dark one is if we're including, well, I've played with him as well, like with Craigs. What Craigs likes to do is he can drink, he's a very decent drinker, like, but what he's very clever at doing is kind of sitting back and watching everyone else go self-destruct. Yeah, that's a big thing that missing massively is the social. That's a big part of Quins' socials, having a laugh, fancy dress, you know what I mean? But yeah, so yeah, there's some bad drinks. I think there's a video of Gary sliding across one of the tables in the Quins, and I think Siggs and Don Booth from the Academy boys naked wrestling, just random stuff and waterfalls and everywhere. I can't really get into all that, but yeah.
And who's the best changing room DJ you've had there?
I think Lawrence Reynolds would want me to say him. I'm only joking. Lawrence, dog is nickname. He's got some decent tunes on there. We've got the boombox. We like to have the boombox go round with us everywhere.
And without revealing too much, who's the biggest liability you've seen on Night Owl?
I think I've answered that one already, haven't I? No, a liability. Siggs would love it. He'd probably look at this and laugh to himself. Right now, he's a good lad. He is. Yeah, but I think we all have me. When we all have us, and I tell you what, it's going to be a good one when this all kind of blows over. But yeah, Siggs enjoys it. Fair play to him. But like I said, his hands and feet are massive, like huge. So like, and he's got like freakishly strong. So like, and that's on a good day. So when you put a couple of pints in him and a bit of red wine, I don't think he means to. I genuinely don't think he means to be as like rough and as he is, but he is a clumsy one. Like, but yeah, no, it's a good bunch of boys there.
And if you were stuck on a desert island, who's the teammate you most want to be stuck with and the one you'd least want to be stuck with?
I think I'd like to be stuck with Ed Siggery. Just because it would be a laugh, it'd be carnage. We definitely survive on a desert island. We definitely survive. He's a proper hunter. I think I thought about it properly. He'd be killing everything on that island, like, and cooking it up for us. Least like on there. That's a tough one, that, isn't it? Probably. I can't even think who I'd least like.
Guest in if you want.
You'll love this. I chuck it now. I'd only chuck him on there because I know Siggs would get to him after 5 minutes and he'd probably be swimming back. Who would I least? There's no one I wouldn't least on there. I'd want to chuck someone like Lewis Millen. Like Millen is like, talk about class players you play with, like, and through the Quins. I mean, I know I mentioned like recent ones of like Torrin and Millen, like backup and those boys, like, but Millen I'd like to get him on that island just to see him and Siggs go for it, like, because Millen goes about his work quietly, and he's one to watch. I'm telling you that now. I know we're gifted in the back row in regional, international, everything, but he's a class player. But yeah, I'd stick him on there just to see him and Siggs. I tell you what, I'll try and get Siggs to kind of turn him into his kind of way of being. That'd be a laugh.
Right, that's that for another episode then. Thanks for coming on, Haydn.
No worries at all. Thank you very much.
Thanks everyone for watching, and check out our social medias at Welsh Prem Pod.
He's got a brand new car, looks like a Jaguar.